what we can do with trackers, sensors, and other trace measures is exciting, but at the same time, I think we have an unprecedented challenge in communicating that these tools are fair and valid. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what a tool is capable of doing if people and organizations see it as harmful or invasive.
I think the most fundamentally exciting assessment technology is natural language processing. It has broad applications against many different specific assessment types, and the machine learning approaches associated with it have reached a maturity level where, it might actually improve construct measurement beyond what we can currently manage. It has broad potential, and it can be feasibly implemented right now with existing technology, and that really makes it both exciting for research and practice. Longer term, there are a lot of other exciting possibilities that rely on further advances in AI, like mixed reality or biometrics, but I think we're at least 10 years away from those even to potentially become mainstream.
To me, the most exciting workplace testing and assessment technologies are actually the ones that ultimately are most useful and effective to job seekers, employees, and organizations. This seems like an obvious thing to be excited about, but this point offers a challenge, and that is to define what actually is useful and effective. What does that mean? There are certainly new technologies that seem exciting, such as measuring job applicant characteristics or job performance criteria, using new technologies, big data, with multiple modalities and measuring intensely across time. But how do we know that doing so, measuring in that way, in those exciting technological ways, are actually useful and effective?
I think there will be a number of anti-assessment tools marketed to individual job seekers. I'm imagining something like a deepfake or GPT-3 that is designed to trick the algorithms. And as a result, assessment technology will have to evolve to stay one step ahead of these tools. How can you design a natural language processing personality assessment, for example, that can differentiate between real and artificial language?
I think the next big area for workplace testing and assessment is computational psychometrics. It's an interdisciplinary field that combines psychometrics and computer science. It's really about finding ways to map psychometric concepts onto the kind of data that new technologies provide while still maintaining meaningful construct measurement. It's interdisciplinary, which, that's a big challenge, and it requires authentic expertise in both machine learning and in traditional psychometrics, which is not a set of skills commonly combined, at least right now.
I would like to think that industrial organizational psychology is going to become even more important in the era of AI and machine learning. In other words, I don't think IO psychologists are going to be replaced by these modern technologies and algorithms. Instead, our expertise on the science of work and the workforce is going to provide the necessary content, the necessary expertise that's required to collect data effectively, understand these technologies, and how that combines with the data and the algorithms to lead to effective decision making.
So many people don't understand what assessment is, and they believe it to be inherently unfair because it chooses winners and losers. At the same time, there's this whole slew of new technological development that is advancing without any consideration of fairness or validity. So the biggest challenge we have is to help people understand the difference between an assessment that has been developed according to the standards and one that has not, so they're not lumping all of these things together.
I think the most critical issue the assessment community needs to address is this uncritical acceptance of classical psychometric methods. There are a lot of people with overly simplistic views of some psychometric concepts. Say, for example, to assess reliability, you must calculate a coefficient alpha or a test-retest coefficient. But that forgets the actual purpose of reliability estimates is to estimate the proportion of true score variance out of observed. No specific statistic is required to get to that number. Another example is validation, where people often assume that finding a high correlation with a self-report measure is the only way to prove that you're measuring something meaningful. Yet, if we could achieve the measurement quality we want with self-report, why go to all the effort to learn to integrate new technologies in the first place? A high convergence correlation, just like a high coefficient alpha, isn't really the goal. The real goal is measurement.
So there's always been a concern about measuring job applicants on job-relevant characteristics. That's always been a long-standing concern in IO psychology, and we conduct job analysis to make sure our measures are well aligned with the constructs, the characteristics we think we need in our job applicants. That's a centuries-long pursuit. And the influx of AI and machine learning technologies does not make that practice irrelevant. And I guess what I'm saying in answering this question is, in fact, it's more relevant, or the concern for substance behind AI and algorithms is actually growing, and that's where I feel the field needs to be heading to increase its impact and relevance within the domain of personal selection and AI.
I understand the frustration of feeling that a test can determine your destiny. Ultimately, though, evaluating people is necessary whenever there are fewer opportunities than people who want those opportunities. Most other ways of choosing people have serious issues with bias and unfairness. Assessments, when created properly, are a way of evening the playing field and giving people with talent an opportunity to be noticed. This is most noticeable when it comes to issues of social and economic inequality. People who need to work full-time, for example, don't have the luxury of signing up for unpaid internships or doing lots of extracurricular activities, and they would be overlooked if selection committees unduly weighted those activities.
A lot of the data scientists that I've talked to seem to believe that unfairness is something that can be engineered out of a system. They often don't recognize or even think about the systemic issues that create the problems that they're trying to engineer out. And in that way, mechanical solutions to equity issues are sometimes more harmful than helpful. They can actually create more problems than they solve. Artificial intelligence by itself solves no problems. It's all about how we use it. And it's only by combining our expertise across disciplinary lines, by having open and frank conversations about these issues, that we're really going to ever achieve any real progress in creating fair assessments.
So regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion, there's what I call a happy coincidence that I think is playing out here in the arena of AI and machine learning. And the coincidence has to do with the fact that big data techniques at least has the promise, if the reality is working toward this promise, of reliably measuring a greater diversity of job-relevant applicant characteristics. We can measure many more things than we could before. We can measure it over time. We can measure it quickly. We can measure it relatively conveniently, and across behavioral and self-report channels, we can get at convergent and unique aspects of characteristics.